Like a young cub, a girl named Alina Clover sleeps peacefully in her bed, the sun's reflection casting a dim glow across the room. Soon, she happily wakes up to greet the new day. She gets dressed and prepares for another day of work, determined to give it her all. In a Western European-style building, Alina works at the Eiffel counter as a guild receptionist. The equipment is state-of-the-art, appearing more futuristic than archaic, quite the contrast to the town's traditional look. Quest boards display available missions on digital panels, while holographic greetings hover over the receptionist's desk, welcoming adventurers. Alina enjoys her easygoing life behind the counter, wearing a cute uniform, helping people, and going home when her shift ends. She bows with a cheerful smile to each customer, but deep down she knows that things never go as smoothly as she hopes. Because what the rest of the world doesn't know is her true identity. She is the legendary adventurer, Executioner. In an instant, she appears in a more comfortable outfit, her face concealed beneath a hood. Summoning her large, mystical hammer, she charges forward. As the dragon breathes fire, she yells at it for making her work overtime. Dodging the flames, she leaps into action, cursing the creature as she prepares to strike it down. Back at the guild, another peaceful day unfolds. The hall is packed with adventurers waiting their turn to take on quests. Next in line is Gans, the Raging Blade, a confident and well-known elite. Alina, already irritated by his presence, forces a polite smile as he approaches. The towering man slaps a paper onto the counter, declaring his intent to take on the floor boss of the Belfa underground ruins, the Hellflame Dragon. His booming voice catches everyone's attention. Alina scans the request and checks the details. Gans turns to address the crowd, declaring that they've spent too long being held back by dungeon creatures, forcing them to rely on Silver Sword, his prestigious guild. Alina, however, believes Silver Sword has been dragging its feet for too long. Keeping her focus on Gans, she informs him that he needs a second-hand license to take the quest. Gans scoffs, pointing to himself. "I'm part of Silver Sword, the top guild," he reminds her, assuming his presence alone should be proof of his identity. Internally, Alina is fuming. Of course, she knows who he is. She has to deal with insufferable adventurers like him every day. But rules are rules. It's to make sure you're qualified for the quest, she explains. Still not getting the memo, Gans removes his helmet and flashes a confident grin. Alina repeats herself. Undeterred, he rattles off his many titles, but she cuts him off. "Just give me your license so I can verify it." Eventually, he sighs and hands it over. Once everything checks out, he's cleared for the quest. Placing his helmet back on, he strides away, leaving Alina to brace herself. There's still a long line of adventurers to process, and she's already mentally exhausted. The history of the guild: centuries ago, the town's ancestors received blessings from their gods, whom they called Dia. These divine gifts advanced their civilization, allowing them to flourish. But one day, Dia vanished, and the land was overrun by monsters, plunging the country into chaos. 200 years ago, people began fighting back, reclaiming their cities and establishing guilds to keep the threats in check. The Eiffel counter became the largest guild hall, issuing quests to adventurers. While adventurers celebrate their latest victories with drinks and laughter, Alina remains at her desk, buried under a mountain of unfinished reports. She sighs, thinking about all the things she could be doing, taking a nice bath, cooking a homemade meal, reading a book, anything but this. Yet here she is, stuck under the dim glow of a single magic lamp, drowning in paperwork. The thought of pushing it off until tomorrow crosses her mind, but she knows she can't. With a resigned sigh, she cracks open a medieval energy drink and pushes through. The reason for the endless paperwork? The same monster keeps going unchecked, forcing more and more adventurers to try and outmatch the dragon. Frustration boils over as she slams her hands onto the desk. This cycle will never end. Tears prick her eyes, an entire month of this nonsense, and she's still stuck doing overtime. Slamming her adventurer's license on the table, she shouts that she'll finally be able to clock out on time. At the deepest level of the Belfla underground ruins lies a crystal cave where a dragon's roar echoes. The top guild, Silver Swords, is locked in battle against the Hellfire Dragon. Their leader, Jade, activates Sigurth Wall just as the beast breathes fire toward them, forcing his teammates to take cover behind his shield. "Now, Gans!" Jade calls. The large man charges at the dragon, swinging his massive battle axe, but his strike barely scratches the creature's armored scales. With a single swipe of its claws, the dragon sends him crashing into the cavern wall, leaving a crater in his wake. He slumps to the ground, dazed. "Lululi!" Jade shouts. Their support mage, Lululi, immediately casts a healing spell while Low Lozblender attacks with Imber, an offensive ice spell. A spear of frozen shards collides with the dragon, creating a mist upon impact, but it barely does any damage. Despair sets in as each of them realizes they aren't strong enough. Jade considers retreating. Then, she walks in. Alina, known as the Executioner, enters the battlefield. Run, Jade yells, but she ignores him, activating her skill and summoning a massive hammer. Glaring at the dragon, she vents her frustration. Because of you, I have to work overtime. You're gonna pay for that. Her first strike sends the dragon stumbling back. As it regains focus and lunges to attack, she moves with a burst of speed, dodging and slamming her hammer into its side. This time, the dragon is knocked off its feet. Panic flashes in its eyes before it spreads its wings, attempting to escape. Oh no, you don't. Alina doesn't let it flee. She leaps onto its back, running up its scales, and with a final devastating blow, she crushes the dragon's skull in a burst of flames. Silence follows. The others watch in shock. She defeated a boss-level monster alone. The magic orb from the dragon's corpse falls to the ground, but Alina barely spares it a glance. Then she realizes everyone is staring at her. Panic sets in. Did they see her face? Without another word, she flees. The next day, a wanted poster circulates. Not as a bounty, but as a tabloid-style article speculating about the executioner's real identity. At the same time, news spreads that Gans has retired from Silver Swords. At the guild, Alina slumps over her desk, mortified. What an idiot I was. Lila, one of her colleagues, walks over. Hey, aren't you curious about the executioner? Alina nearly chokes. What? Lila beams. She's so cool, even cooler than Mr. Jade. She always shows up when people need help. She should totally team up with Silver Swords. They'd be invincible. Alina forces a laugh. Yeah, not happening. After all, she's been doing this illegally. If she's caught, she'll get fired. And as a responsible woman, she values stability, job security, great benefits, and a solid retirement plan. There's no way she's giving that up to be a full-time adventurer. Meanwhile, at the Silver Swords headquarters, Jade is losing his mind. I need to find that girl. His teammates exchange skeptical looks. You're sure the executioner was a girl? I remember her face, her eyes, her hair color. Drop it, one of them sighs. Right now, we need a new attacker since Gans retired. Later, while out shopping for herbs, Lo complains, why are we even doing this? I'd rather sleep. Lululi rolls her eyes. Lazy. All you ever do is nap. Excuse me? I study all night, thank you very much. Elsewhere, in a dark alley, an angry boy kicks a can, cursing those who made fun of him. A figure clad in dark skeletal armor looms behind him. Meanwhile, Jade walks through the streets, lost in thought about the artifact left behind by the dragon, an ancient relic granting unknown abilities. But his mind keeps drifting back to her. She fought differently from them, as if she had a completely unique skill set. Then, as if fate itself had given him a sign, a gust of wind blows, and he sees her, Alina. She turns slightly, revealing her unmistakable green eyes. It's her. It has to be her. Jade takes off running. Alina, seated at the guild's receptionist desk, feels the weight of his stare. Her palms start to sweat. Crap, he's investigating the executioner. She forces a smile as he approaches, but her terrible poker face betrays her. Internally, she panics. I covered my tracks. I even have a fake name on my license. There's no way he knows, right? Jade doesn't let up. I have some questions. She swallows hard. This is it. My life as a guild receptionist is over, but she won't go down without a fight. The two step outside where Jade hands her the relic from the dragon fight. This is your reward. She takes it, but as they discuss how unbreakable it supposedly is, she absent-mindedly crushes it in her hand, like glass. Jade stares. Alina glares. If you get me fired, I swear I'll turn you into paste. As she turns to leave, he grabs her wrist, activating his skill to harden whatever he touches. She narrows her eyes. You sure about this? Jade, filled with determination, nods. As the leader of the strongest party, I have to ask you to join us. Alina lifts her hammer. You absolute dumbass. She swings, ready to kill him for threatening her job. Jade pleads with her to stop repeatedly, then asks if her weapon is the legendary Dia skill, but Alina doesn't know what that is and doesn't care. Jade tries again, insisting that he came here to talk. As he blurts out that he wants her, Alina, annoyed, warns him that she'll sue for sexual harassment and abuse of power. Jade quickly explains that he meant he wants her on his team. He just can't get over how she beat the Hell Dragon and thinks she could still party with them when she's not working. But Alina has no interest in that. She'd rather go home. The only reason she fights at all is to avoid working overtime. Jade is confused, but before he can say anything, she shuts him down. Don't look at me like that. I don't need another reason to fight. She drags him in and blames his pathetic party for dragging their feet trying to beat that damn dragon. because all that does is force her to work extra hours and fall further behind in her actual job. After hearing her out, Jade can only apologize. Before he leaves, she gives him one last warning: don't speak about this to anyone, or I'll destroy you. The next day, her junior is being yelled at by some guy in an alley, someone looking for a secret quest. Alina steps in, confirming that her colleague is correct. They don't have any quests labeled as secret quests. The aggressive boy scoffs, telling her to drop the act because he knows they have them. He then calls Alina a stuck-up receptionist bitch. Alina doesn't show her annoyance, but in her head, she knows exactly what he's talking about, just a rumor made up by adventurers. She reiterates that all quests are displayed publicly, but he remains adamant that they're lying, making her want to punch this guy in the face. The man calls her a bitch again and looks ready to attack, but before he can make a move, his hand is grabbed by Jade. "Drop it," Jade warns. Slay glares at him. "Oh? Trying to show off in front of a lady?" He lunges at Jade, but Jade easily takes him down. Pinning Slay's arm, Jade threatens to break it if he ever touches Alina again. Then, almost as an afterthought, he remembers her words and corrects himself. "I mean, just the receptionist." Slay scowls, but ultimately runs off like a cartoon villain. Lila lets out a sigh of relief and thanks Miss Alina for defending her. Jade then turns to Alina, his expression shifting to concern. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she replies. "Be careful," he says. "There are guys like that, and you shouldn't provoke them." Alina nods and bows, thanking him. But then, slipping back into her usual persona from yesterday, she narrows her eyes. "Why is a member of Silver Sword here?" Jade tenses, realizing he might be busted. "Just passing by," he claims, then quickly makes his exit. Alina smirks. "Come visit again," she calls after him, though she doesn't mean it. The next morning, she wakes up thinking about Jade. He might have figured something out about her. Maybe she should rough him up a bit to make sure he stays quiet. But she dismisses the idea. Probably not the best move. Getting fired for assaulting a guy would be bad. She groans, flopping back onto her bed. She just wants to stay home and escape reality. But she knows she can't. She just took out a mortgage on this house. She needs her secure job. The thought of work makes her reaffirm that it's the best job ever. She can't quit now. At lunch, Alina angrily shovels food into her mouth, still thinking about that guy. Then she notices him camped out at her counter, just standing there. Just as she starts wondering what the hell he's doing, he walks over. "This place is peaceful," he comments casually. Seeing him here, Alina's ready to activate her skill and attack. Jade raises his hands in defense. "I didn't even do anything." "Shut up," she snaps. "This is the only time I get to be alone." Fred, Jade tilts his head. "When did you unlock your skill? I'm not telling you." She turns and walks away. Jade watches her go, sighing. "You're wasting your skill just being a receptionist." She scoffs. "And you're wasting your time stalking me." 2 summers ago, Ifol held its Centennial Festival, a grand event spanning 3 days and 3 nights of non-stop partying. Alina didn't get to enjoy any of it. She was brand new at her job, forced to work overtime to fix all the mistakes she made. By the time she finally finished, she was exhausted, crumbling under the stress. There's a legend. The person who desires a wish the most can receive a blessing from their god. Desperate, Alina had prayed internally, begging the gods not to make her work overtime. Somehow, she managed to finish her tasks early. She ran to the festival, eager to finally have some fun. But when she got there, it was already over. She stood frozen, staring at the empty streets. Then, the crushing weight of reality hit her. She worked so hard just to have a little fun, only to miss everything. Tears welled up in her eyes. Because of those lousy adventurers, she had to file more paperwork. Because of those damn monsters, she had to clean up the mess. Her frustration boiled over. She cried, willing to do anything to never work overtime again. Then, in a fit of desperation, she screamed to the heavens, demanding power. If she had it, she'd use it to get rid of all the overtime in the world. Dia rewards her for making a wish straight from the heart, which is how she gained her power. Slay sits on the bench, still mad about what happened, wanting to punch the receptionist into next year, not Jade. He then overhears some adventurers talking about bringing a monster to the festival, one that took an entire raid party to defeat. Meanwhile, Jade is lost in thought, wondering how he can get Alina to notice him since he has a crush on her. Suddenly, he hears a commotion. It sounds like an earthquake. Slay is on top of the monster, smashing rocks and causing chaos, acting like a badass little kid. Jade can't believe what he's seeing, but immediately prepares to fight. Summoning Haster, he draws the monster's attention and orders the other adventurers to leave. They hesitate, believing he's not strong enough to defeat it. That's when he's told this is a raid boss, making the situation even more dangerous. Slay then laughs like a full-blown evil villain, revealing that this was all his doing. He's controlling the monster and plans to kill everyone just because he's pissed off, proving he's a complete psychopath. Determined, Jade grabs a shield and activates Sigurth Wall, blocking the raid boss's devastating attack. Meanwhile, Alina is cursing her boss for dumping a pile of EOD files on her as usual, forcing her into overtime. Hearing the destruction in the city, she goes to check what's happening, only to find that idiot Slay controlling the monster. She's not even surprised. Of course, he's the type of person to give her overtime and destroy the city. Then, the rock golem fires a random attack. She watches its trajectory, her stomach dropping as she realizes where it's headed. No, 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 no. She sprints toward her house, praying that God isn't this cruel. He is. Her house is the only one destroyed. Out of everyone else's, hers got annihilated. She stares at the wreckage, then crumbles to the ground in complete shock. She still has 30 years left on the mortgage. Now she's too pissed off to care. She's going to kill that bastard. Storming onto the battlefield, she obliterates one of the golem's limbs with a single swing. Slay blinks, confused. Jade calls out to her, but Slay just laughs, thinking about how much trouble he'd be in with the guild if he actually killed their top adventurer. But Alina, she's not listening. How dare you take away my comfort place? She seethes. Slay pauses, thrown off. Then she launches into a monologue, voice rising with each word. Her house was her sanctuary, her oasis in modern society, her heaven after work, and he, this giant asshole, took it away. You're gonna die, and you're gonna apologize while doing it. She destroys the golem in a fury, eyes locked onto Slay. He broke something that wasn't his. Now she's going to break him. Later, she sits outside her ruined house, tears in her eyes as Jade confirms that, yeah, Slay really did a number on it. Alina sniffles. I don't even know how to live anymore. Trying to be the hero, Jade offers, you can stay at my apartment tonight. She immediately shuts that down, starts calming just enough to glare at him. Don't joke. This is a serious moment. With a sigh, she says she'll just stay at an inn. But as she walks away, she remembers one last thing. She still has overtime. Because of that asshole. She groans. Jade, just leave me alone. That night, 2 individuals investigate the scene of the crime, searching for executioner. The woman, Feely, and the man, Glenn Gallia. Glenn uses the skill Sigurth Chronos. Later, Alina can't stop cursing her luck, cursing Slay and all his descendants. Meanwhile, Jade organizes her paperwork and tells her to cheer up. She glances at him and asks why he's still here when she told him to go home. He feels guilty and thinks it's better to stick around, just in case this happens again. She blushes and looks away, admitting that he technically works for the guild, so he can be in the office. Jade looks at the mountain of work she handles and questions whether his workload isn't already enough. Alina admits that she used to think like that too, but eventually realized that some days she has no motivation, so she'd rather finish everything now and clock out on time tomorrow. Jade doesn't quite get it, but he hands her the next batch of paperwork, and she checks to see that it's perfect. That's when it hits her. This guy might be the type to excel at everything with only minimal instruction. Meanwhile, she's the clumsy type who makes every little mistake. This realization doesn't just annoy her, it pisses her off. She spent 3 years enduring pain, tears, and suffering, only for him to get it right on the first try. Why the hell do I have to suffer? She grumbles. Seeing her frustration, Jade offers to do all the work so she can go home, but she refuses. Her pride as a receptionist won't allow it. He then offers to buy her sweets, but when he reaches for his wallet, the relic she broke the other day is there, fully repaired. He reads the inscription, and it suddenly activates, causing a glowing panel to appear in front of them. It generates a quest form, instructing them to defeat all the bosses at the clock tower. While Jade tries to decipher what it means, Alina completely ignores it. Not my headache to deal with. The next day, she makes the papers again, with everyone wanting to know who she is. Layla, in particular, questions whether she is executioner. This worries Alina, but Layla assumes she's just a fan, like her. As Layla fangirls over executioner, Jade teases, asking which of them she's a bigger fan of. Layla, convinced executioner is some hot guy, dramatically declares, and I quote, that she wants to be hit with that big hammer. Later, the guildmaster Glenn walks into the room, immediately commanding attention. He's looking for executioner. His eyes scan the room before landing on her. He walks right up to Alina, greets the receptionist, and asks if she knows what his skill is. She stiffens but recites it perfectly. He can stop time and observe events from afar. He chuckles, remarking that this is exactly why she has her job. Then, leaning in closer, he murmurs, "Come to my office." Alina goes pale, muttering under her breath, "He knows." Jade tries to cheer her up, but she snaps at him. "Shut up. You're nothing but a damn tattletale." Jade insists it wasn't him, but she cuts him off. I hate you. I hope you stub your pinky toe on a dresser and die. Jade practically crumbles. She sounds like she genuinely despises him now. Am I shit? Lululi, hearing the situation, jumps in, noting that it sounds like she's always hated him. But Lo quickly covers her mouth. Now is not the time to kick a man when he's already down. Later, they arrive at an arena where the guildmaster challenges her to a duel. Alina is taken aback by the challenge of a duel, with the guildmaster wagering that she must join Silver Sword if he wins. Hearing this, Alina asks what she gets if she wins. The guildmaster replies that no matter what, she can keep her job, and they will leave her alone if she wins. Alina decides to fight and summons her hammer, shocking Jade's party members. They recognize the white magic circle, unable to believe that the desk girl is actually the strongest adventurer. In a sing-song voice, she thanks the guildmaster for wanting to settle this with violence and pure strength, declaring that she will kill him for the sake of her peace. The guildmaster, Glenn, activates Sigurth Kronos, stopping time. He admits that with her power, she could defeat the Dark God, but he believes he is victorious. However, to his shock, her power is so immense that she shatters time itself, entering his personal dimension. Alina, completely unaware of what's happening, listens as Glenn explains that this is his observation room where he stops time. Realizing he has lost, he restarts the flow of time. Back in his office, Glenn apologizes, admitting he was simply curious about her skill. Alina is confused, and his assistant, Feely, explains that there are different types of skills, such as Regen skills, more powerful Sigurth skills, and the rarest of all, Dia skills. Feely then declares that Alina's ability is a Dia skill. Alina, unimpressed, doesn't care. She reminds Glenn of his promise preparing to leave, but Glenn mentions the name Chalk Tower and asks if she's heard of it. She stops, admitting that she has, and demands to know where this is going. Glenn reveals that he received a report from Jade and followed up with an investigation, confirming that the Chalk Tower is real. It was left behind by their ancestors as a hidden quest. Alina, utterly uninterested, goes back to shake Glenn silly. She doesn't care about the quest, but she does recognize that it will lead to more quests being added to the guild's roster, meaning more work for her. She throws a fit, realizing that because no one will be able to conquer it, she'll end up with even more overtime. With her head in her hands, she despairs, realizing she will never escape working overtime. Meanwhile, Glenn starts to piece together that she did all of this just to get off work on time. He tries to reassure her, saying she'll be rewarded when the quest is complete, but she cuts him off, pointing at him. He just promised to leave her alone. She storms out, knowing there's still a chance she might die because of this, but Glenn manages to stop her by offering to double the number of staff. This makes her pause. She peeks back, asking if she heard him correctly. After a moment of thought, she realizes that with more staff, she could offload her work onto others. She imagines being surrounded by lovely ladies, all doing her work while she relaxes with tea and snacks. Overcome with emotion, she shouts to the heavens. This is everything she has ever wanted. With that, she accepts Glenn's offer, just this once, on the condition that he eliminates her overtime. At the Silver Sword Mansion, Alina wakes up, adjusting to the luxury of the place. She considers sleeping in, thinking that maybe this could be nice, until the ever-eager Jade knocks on her door to wake her up. At Elm Canyon, the group introduces themselves and heads out. Lo quickly notices that Alina doesn't want to be there. Jade explains that she's using a paid vacation day to be there. Not seeing the big deal in missing a single day, Jade's remark enrages her. He doesn't understand the struggles of adulthood. To Alina, a paid day off is a sacred resource, as essential as basic human rights. At the Chalk Tower, Jade informs her that the guild is keeping information about the place classified. Before going inside, Jade hands her a gem relic that allows them to see when a member is on the verge of death. The guild has given one to every member of Silver Sword. Jade tells her to let him draw the aggro first before he goes in. On the first floor, a werewolf approaches them. Jade goes in first, using Hastor, while Alina follows up, taking it down with a single attack. She now believes she understands the importance of a party, but when she looks back, she sees their shocked expressions. This was a top-tier boss, and she defeated it in one hit. Lo realizes he won't have to do anything today, while Lululi praises her new big sister. The group talks about how their ancestors sought greater power, angering the gods, who wiped them all out. In the hall on the second floor, they hear adventurers. When they arrive, they find the bodies of fallen men. Lululi tries to heal them, but she's too late. Seeing their corpses triggers something in Alina. Jade begins to suspect this wasn't a monster attack, but before he can voice it, Lululi calls out to Rufus, someone they know. Rufus tells them they were attacked by a human-looking monster. Just then, a bat monster, drawn by the scent of the bodies, attacks Jade. Before anyone can react, Alina takes it out instantly. Seeing her white magic circle, Rufus assumes she's working with the monster that defeated them and calls her one as well. That evening, they return to the headmaster's office to discuss the dia-leveled monster. But then Rufus barges into the office, calling them weak for stopping now. He begins acting hysterical, declaring that he should have been on Silver Sword instead of them, accusing them of hiding a monster within their ranks, and threatening to expose them for keeping such a creature in their party. He demands they kick that person off the team and add him instead, all because he wants the relic on the deepest floor. It is revealed that the same mysterious skull figure who met with Slay also met a drunk Rufus, convincing him to go to the Chalk Tower. Jade outright refuses, unwilling to risk his party members' lives based on such unreliable intel. Later that night, Jade visits Alina and tells her she doesn't have to go on the next quest. They'll take Rufus instead. This is a terrible idea since Rufus's team can't even defeat the Hell Dragon. Meanwhile, the Guildmaster is willing to hire the staff he promised. Alina finds all of this suspicious, but doesn't question it. Jade then notices she's wearing normal clothes. Alina explains that she doesn't like wearing her uniform everywhere. He compliments her, saying at least he got to see her in cute clothes at least once. Before leaving, she asks if he really has a plan to deal with the monster. It sounds like he doesn't. Jade admits he has no choice. He was ordered to go, so he goes. That's what being part of the top team means. This worries her. Jade then tells her she's allowed to use this room until her house is repaired. As he leaves, she sees the ghost of someone she once cared about. As a child, Alina worked at a pub where she often spoke with Mr. Shroud, an adventurer. When she was younger, she wanted to become a strong, invincible adventurer, but the man urged her to become a receptionist instead, telling her she would grow up to be pretty and have a nice, stable job. The two made a pinky promise. Later, she saw his dead body. Alina gets up to go to work, telling Jade he'd better come back. Meanwhile, the group is on the third floor with Jade in rough shape, tanking all the attacks. Rufus mocks them, being a general pain, but Jade tells them to ignore him. On the next floor, they run into Silha, the Dark God. A dark orb on his stomach summons Diastorm, a spear, which he throws. Jade manages to block it, but the attack leaves a chip on his shield. Lo wants to retreat, but Rufus cuts in, activating his skill, Prisoner, trapping them in a cage made of his energy. Rufus believes he'll be rewarded if he feeds them to the Dark God, and Jade realizes what he did to his last party, betraying them to gain a Dia skill. As Rufus laughs like a stereotypical evil villain, the Dark God suddenly kills him. When Rufus asks why, the Dark God simply tells him that he devours everyone in front of him, no exceptions, turning him into fuel for his soul. Alina is about to finish her shift at the receptionist's desk on time for once. She checks her gem crystal, remembering that it can warn her if they're in danger. She briefly wonders if those weaklings will be okay, but quickly shakes her head, pushing the thought aside to focus on work. At Chalk Tower, the Dark God Scylla steps forward, ready to begin the fight. Lo fires a stream of flames at him, but Silha effortlessly waves it away. Lululi activates her skill, Sigurth Revive, preparing to heal Jade when he inevitably gets wounded. Silha suddenly hurls his spear at Jade. He barely manages to block it, but the impact deals massive damage to his shield and leaves him with a deep cut. The Dark God eyes Lululi and smirks, having noticed her regenerative ability. Interesting, he muses. I think I'll be taking that skill for myself. Lululi stiffens in fear. Before she can react, Silha activates Deodrain, summoning a mirror that reflects her own magic, unleashing a blinding light. When the light fades, her staff is gone, stolen by the Dark God. But instead of keeping it, he casually snaps it in half. He has no need for it. Panicked, Lululi attempts to use her healing skill, only to realize it no longer works. Her divine blessing has been stripped away. Lo notices a strange tattoo on Silha's neck. His eyes widen in recognition. That mark, he mutters. He's a relic, a remnant of the ancestors. Jade, ever the over-the-top hero, tells his friends to run. He wants to face the Dark God alone. Silha chuckles, finding his bravery amusing. Jade activates Sigurth Blood, drawing all attacks toward himself. Silha, still entertained, simply points at him. In response, his telekinetic swords launch forward, piercing through Jade's shield and slicing into him. But Jade grits his teeth, refusing to fall. I train every day to be resilient enough to withstand a single attack, he shouts. Lo, get out of here, Scylla smirks. Let's see how long that lasts. A second sword stabs into Jade. He rushes forward, desperate to save him, but before she can reach him, Lo swoops in, grabbing her and carrying her away. "Let me go," she screams, struggling in his grip. But Lo has already made up his mind. "We don't stand a chance," he says, his voice grim. Surprisingly, Silha doesn't pursue them. He's having too much fun playing with Jade. On the third floor of the tower, Lululi finally breaks free and shoves Lo. "How could you leave him?" Lo shouts back. "He gave us a chance to leave. There was nothing we could have done." The truth crashes over her like a tidal wave. She crumbles to the ground. Jade is dead, but they aren't given a moment to grieve. A low growl echoes through the hallway, and they turn to see another monster approaching, hungry. Back at the guild building, Alina is dealing with a very unhappy Lila, who is complaining about working overtime. "This way, we can actually clock out on time tomorrow," Alina says, sipping her drink. Layla groans but takes sip of her own, the two of them down their Red Bulls, exhausted. Then, out of nowhere, Layla sniffles. "I still can't believe the guild's giving up on finding the executioner. My dream guy." Alina rolls her eyes but stops when she notices something. Lila's pocket is glowing. "What's that?" Alina asks. Lila pulls out the source, a small gem pulsing with light. "Aw, it's kinda cute," she says, tilting her head. "But why is it glowing?" Alina freezes. The color drains from her face as realization dawns. That glow means one thing. Silver Sword is on the verge of death. For a moment, ghosts of her past flicker in her mind. Then, without another word, she slams the table and bolts out the door. Back on the fourth floor of Chalk Tower, Scylla conjures 50 swords out of thin air, forming a deadly ring around Jade. "Let's see," he muses. "How many can a human take before he breaks?" In his final moments, he remembers the grumpy face of the girl he loves, never once disliking it. From the very first moment he saw her, he knew he was drawn to her. He loves her childish nature, her resolute way of solving problems through force, the dead look in her eyes when she's working, and the terrifying expression she makes when she's angry. Compared to her, Jade believes Scylla is nothing. Meanwhile, Alina rushes to the dungeon gate, guarded by NPCs. They immediately point their swords at her, signaling her to halt. She stops, frozen with indecision. If she reveals herself, her entire life could change. But she can't let Jade and the others die. Taking a deep breath, she activates her skill and commands them to move. Inside, on the third floor, Lo is being crushed by a monster. He simply can't tank the hits. Lululi rushes to him, crying, helpless without her staff or healing skills. As Lo bleeds out, he tells the girl he likes to run, knowing she can't fight. But Lululi is the type to go down with the ship. She even throws up a classic T-pose in defiance of death. Luckily, Alina arrives just in time. With a single swing, she obliterates the monster. Seeing them still alive, she breathes a sigh of relief, tosses Lo an energy drink, then heads straight for the boss. By the time she reaches the chamber, it looks like she's too late. Jade is slumped against the wall, unmoving. Alina's mind spirals into panic, traumatic memories flashing before her eyes. His voice echoes in her head, but he doesn't move. She screams his name, only to be interrupted by the sharp whistle of a spear cutting through the air. She dodges just in time and lunges toward the boss. Silha, grinning, welcomes another entertaining fight. He casually confirms Jade is dead. Alina promises to kill him. With a roar, she activates her hammer and smashes him into a pillar. The dark god pulls himself up, intrigued. A mere human? Matching his skill? Amused, he activates his Dia skill. A storm of swords materializes around her. Alina deflects most, but the overpowered attack is relentless. Several blades pierce through her. The pain is unbearable. She's not a warrior. And the final sword? It's aimed straight for her head. She's about to die, until it's blocked. Silha raises an eyebrow, impressed. More durable than I thought. But Alina, gritting her teeth, pushes forward. She lunges at his chest. Then she turns to Jade. Is he really alive? Jade groggily replies that he was asleep this whole time. The sound of her hammer woke him up. He was just waiting for her. Tears fall as Jade rushes in to hug her. She's embarrassed, but lets him. Then, as if nothing happened, she offers him a bottle of her energy drink. Jade, of course, immediately fixates on one thing, an indirect kiss. The touching moment is cut short as Scylla gets back up. A single wound won't take him down. Alina watches in horror as he regenerates. Jade, gritting his teeth, realizes what happened. Silha stole Lululi's skill. Then through his next words, the truth of the past is revealed. The humans of the past didn't become gods. They weren't killed by gods. They died to their own AI creation, an intelligence that deemed them illogical. Scylla raises a hand. 100 swords materialize around them. Jade clenches his fists. He can't block them, not without his shield. He turns to Alina and tells her the same thing he told his friends. Run. She refuses. He shouts at her to leave. It's his job as a tank to stay back the longest. Alina glares at him. He has his pride as a tank. She has her pride as a receptionist. Neither of them can compromise. With fierce determination, she swings her hammer, carving out a path. Then she charges straight at the Dark God, leaping past the second wave of swords, only to be struck down midair. But she gets back up, declaring that one day she'll enjoy a peaceful life with vacation benefits. Because of this, her wish is amplified, and she becomes even more determined to drag this boss down. With the fourth Raikage's lightning cloak, she pushes the Dark God back. The Dark God panics and summons 1,000 swords. Alina doesn't even move. His wish is not greater than hers. His desire is not stronger than hers. The gods have truly named Alina their favorite child. On his deathbed, Silha reveals that he's not the only Dark God, that she'll have to do this for the rest of her life. But she cuts him off by killing him. Jade's sweat drops, realizing that Silha was about to reveal something really important, but Alina doesn't care. In the end, they all get a happy ending. The boys are healed up, the guildmaster manages to get the guards to keep quiet, and her house is repaired. But Alina still has to work overtime. Jade, fresh out of the hospital and still injured, comes by, about to confess his love. He gets smacked before he can finish. Instead, Alina decides to put him to work, forcing him to help her finish her paperwork. She just wants to go to bed.